All right, our first morning at the new place with my partner here. I feel like we're in some kind of like werewolf movie. It's so foggy. So I'll go to sleep at night with some kind of podcast or background noise playing. I fell asleep last night listening to a fellow Floridian. I think his name is Matthew Cox. He did some fraudulent mortgage stuff, went to jail, went on the run, da 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 da. Anyways, just listening to whatever random, ex-corrections officer, ex-inmate, da 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 da, has a story. I don't know why people are so fascinated with being bad. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a fantasy adults and young men and, people have, like, being bad. Like, there's nothing good about being in prison, And I look at all these, and I don't dislike Matt. I think he's got a pretty decent show. I'm not saying I would get life advice from him or spiritual advice, but I mean, whatever, it is what it is. He's an entertainer. I'm not hating on the dude. But I like watching podcasts where people have done something wrong, like a guard did something and he got his shit together and realized that, he had to take responsibility for, I like that type of, shit. Like, he couldn't accept that he was at fault for something, and now he's realized that he was, because that's where real progress and true change begins to, I don't want to use the word manifest because it's one of these new buzzwords people use. That's where it really begins in its infancy to start the progress of, I've said this 1,000 times, but just being real. People aren't truthful with themselves. You know what I mean? Like, when I walk around out here in the world, I see guys on a motorcycle and they got neck tattoos, full sleeves, whatever. And it's like they're projecting this image, of, I'm somebody you don't want to fuck around with, oh, he looks bad. And some of it's inaccurate. And some of it's not intentional, some of it's a stereotype, but, you see people like, I'm an MMA fighter and, I've got something to prove, or I've got to, this pride, and I've got to show the world that I'm tough and I got to show myself. And to an extent, a little bit of that is healthy, a lot of it isn't, I don't know, I just don't think people are really in touch with who they are at all. I think people don't think about others at all. They have very poor situational awareness. They have very poor, I don't know how to word this, regard for other people's, feelings. And I've always been a sensitive dude, with people. I've always been able to, tell a girl, how I feel about her. I don't know, I just feel like today people just have these walls and masks and play these games of just nonsensical, bullshit, like Conor McGregor, what are you gonna, as a man, what do you tell your kids? You're in a hotel room cheating on your, bro, grow up. You know what I mean? You've got everything, it's never enough for these people. They're never satisfied because they're never at peace. You know what I mean? They have turned themselves over to a reprobate mind where they feel like they feel like, bro, if let's say there was no God and there was no whatever, in 50 years and 20 years and 100 years, no one's going to ever remember you. You know what I mean? And if they do, it's not going to be for anything good. I don't know, if I was wanting to be famous, which I don't want to be, I've had some times where, people would always say to me, oh, you're so funny, you should be a stand-up comic, and blah, blah, blah. And I would always say, if somebody tells me that again, I'm going to do it. Then I would say it would happen and I wouldn't do it. And finally, I just did it, and I had success, and, in a small area. I was a corrections officer, I was on the radio, and I just looked around at the party that was going on. I mean, I had a Coke dealer that wouldn't even sell me Coke. He would just give it to me. And I just looked at this whole thing, and I just, even though I was using drugs, I just said, what am I doing with a microphone telling people jokes? Like, did my parents not pay attention to me enough? Because that's not the truth. Do I need validation from people? Do I really want to entertain people? Yeah, to an extent you want to make people feel good. I guess some people do. I mean, I understand it. But I just felt like you have to, like, self-promote yourself. And I was just like, yeah, I don't really want to promote myself like that. This is back in the MySpace days, And I just remember, like, I'm not a corporate person. I remember I was in the studio with a dude on Surf 98.3 in Wilmington, North Carolina. I forget his name, but he later went on to 105.1. And a song from Fall Out Boy just finished during the break, and we came back on the air, and he's like, so, you're doing my little PR bit. And I was just like, man, Fall Out Boy is just a horrible band. Man, it's just horrible music. And he's like, hits the, like, mute button. He's like, yeah, don't talk bad about the music, even if I like your songs, I don't, because they're like, yeah, 98.3, we're back here in the studio. And it's like, I'm not going to play along. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to fucking play along. I was listening to an interview with a dude who, I forget what he did. I think he's local too. He's a tattoo guy and da-da-da-da. Come on, buddy. And he's like, I'm never going to, like, Harbor Freight. You know what I mean? I'm over here near Harbor Freight. So many people here, and there's nothing wrong with being professional at your job and giving people great customer service and all that. Nothing wrong with it. But I'm never going to espouse your fucking views and take on your moral code and, everything the company does is right, because not everything, same thing with, like, working. I'm just never going to be a company man. You know what I mean? I'm just never going to be a company man. When I worked at the prison, I was never a company man. When I worked here, I was never a company man. I feel like not that the rules don't apply, it's kind of like I'm not blind enough to just fucking put my head in the sand and I'm not a robot, I'm not able to fucking, I feel like what I bring to the table by its own self is more than adequate than what their fucking corporate structure or their stupid rules or their, you can't wear, there'll be places, you can't show tattoos, you have to cover them up with a sleeve thing or a thing that goes over. It's like, I'm not going to, you have to lock the bathroom every, or check the, you have to count your, whatever it is, it's like, I'm just going to use some fucking common sense. I understand why rules exist, and I understand why, because you have to talk to everybody in corporate like they're fucking stupid and they wouldn't know how. It's like, explaining to people, like, to keep your hands free and clear when you get in the subway of the door. Should we really need to fucking, like a stop sign? At this point in our lives, do we really need to have the word stop on a fucking red sign at an intersection? Like the flashing light up there at some of these locations, it's green, it's yellow, and it's red. It doesn't say caution. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. I just kind of feel like some people are just willing to, like, sell themselves out for any whatever, I'm this, I'm that. It's like, even if I worked for the sheriff's department, I was making $100,000 a year. I'm going to adhere to, basic law-abiding principles and stuff. But I'm also going to use some common sense and some of my own moral, whatever, to make decisions on the fly. Oh, you're supposed to get so many, whatever DUIs. Well, I pull somebody over, and I'm not really looking at this person like maybe they just look like they're tired from working too long or whatever, and they fail a fucking test, and it's like, I'm not really fucking trying to fuck this dude's life up. He just got out of work over at the fucking cup making factory, and then you go into work and they're like, well, you had a call. What happened? You had the guy. We're gonna look at your body cam. Well, it looks like he failed. Yeah, but he wasn't drunk, man. It's like, I don't know. I'm not gonna follow. I'm just not gonna follow anything blindly, and I never have been that way. It's not rebellion or anything like that. It's just like, of course I'm going to follow the fucking rules, I'm going to do the best I can. You don't have to babysit me. And I've been like that since a young age. Doing pest control, using somebody's car. You're out in the world. There was no GPS back then. There was no phones. You just went and you had a list of people and you went and did it. And they didn't, if they trusted you and gave you an opportunity to work there, it was because you were trustworthy. Nowadays it's like we micromanage all of everything, and you got to micromanage people. They shouldn't be working there.